"I'll dump him once I'm sure you're serious," she texted, but it wasn't meant for me. So I packed my things that night. Now she's broke, blocked, and begging for another chance. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. I've always thought of myself as the safe guy, not in a boring way, but in a dependable way. If I tell you I'll be there, I'm there. If I say I'll help, I'm already rolling up my sleeves. That's how I've always been in relationships, and it's how I was with Maya. When we started dating, she told me I was the first guy who actually treated her with consistency. She used to joke that I was husband material, even though she was nowhere near thinking about marriage. At the time, I thought it was a compliment. Later, I realized it was her way of putting me in a box: safe, reliable, predictable, a placeholder. I worked a steady job in IT, not glamorous but solid. I paid my bills on time, had a decent apartment, and kept my life together. She worked part-time while chasing different creative projects that never seemed to land anywhere. I didn't mind covering dinners or helping with rent when she came up short. I thought we were building something together, and I was fine carrying more of the weight if it meant she could figure herself out. There were signs I ignored, like how she loved posting thirst traps on Instagram with captions like unattainable, while tagging me in the comments as if that somehow made it respectful. Or the way she'd flirt with bartenders, then laugh and say, "Relax, it's harmless." I'd never actually go for someone like that. I told myself I trusted her, that if she wanted to be with me, she was allowed to enjoy attention as long as she wasn't acting on it. Deep down, though, I noticed how often her phone was in her hand, how quickly she flipped it face down if I walked into the room. Still, I brushed it off. I was invested. I thought love meant pushing past insecurity, being the stable one when things got shaky. I remember one specific weekend that sums up how things were between us. My buddies had planned a camping trip, 3 days out in the woods, fishing, hiking, no cell service. I was dying to go, but Maya had just gotten approved for a new apartment across town, and her movers fell through at the last minute. Without hesitation, I canceled my trip and spent the entire weekend carrying boxes, setting up furniture, and even fixing her wobbly bed frame with tools I brought from my place. She didn't even say thank you, just posted a picture of her new space with the caption, "Independent woman energy," no mention of me. I shrugged it off because that's what I did. I convinced myself that real relationships weren't about recognition, they were about actions. And I was proud of being the kind of guy who showed up, no matter what. Looking back now, I see how lopsided it was. I gave stability, effort, loyalty. She gave presence when it suited her. But at the time, I thought that was just the balance of relationships. The last few weeks before everything fell apart, she got even more distant. Always busy, always tired, always texting someone with that little smirk she gave when she thought no one noticed. I asked once, casually, who she was talking to. She rolled her eyes and said, "God, you're paranoid. It's just work stuff. You seriously need to chill." And so I did. I chilled. I trusted her because I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous boyfriend who made her feel trapped. But all it took was one text, one message that landed in my lap by complete accident, and suddenly all those little red flags weren't little anymore. They were screaming at me, loud enough that I couldn't ignore them. At the time, though, I didn't know any of that. All I knew was I was in love with a woman who seemed more and more detached from me every day. And I was still trying to believe that if I just stayed steady, if I just kept showing up, she'd realize I was exactly the man she claimed she wanted. I was wrong. It happened on a Thursday night. Nothing special. We had just eaten takeout on the couch, noodles and dumplings, and Maya got up to shower. Her phone buzzed against the cushion next to me, screen lighting up. I wouldn't normally snoop, but the preview of the message was right there in bold letters. "I'll dump him once I'm sure you're serious." And below it, her contact name, me. At first, I thought it was some bizarre joke. Maybe she was texting me from another app? But then I realized what had happened. She meant to send it to someone else, but sent it to me instead. By the time she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, I was still staring at the phone. "Maya," I said calmly, "you might want to check your messages." She froze for half a second, then tried to play it off with a laugh. "Oh my God, don't tell me you're reading my texts now." "You sent me something," I replied. I handed her the phone. She looked at the screen, her face flickering just slightly before she rolled her eyes. "Are you serious?" "That was a joke." "Obviously. A joke," I repeated. My voice didn't rise. I wasn't angry. Just hollow. Yes, a joke. God, you're so sensitive. She dropped onto the couch beside me, towel still clinging to her. I was just messing with a friend. You really think I'd say something like that for real? I tilted my head. So you're telling me you text friends that you'll dump me if someone else is serious? She scoffed. You don't get humor. You're overreacting. Who was it meant for? I asked. Why does that matter? She snapped. You're being controlling right now. You're always like this, looking for problems where there aren't any. I just stared at her. The silence stretched so long that she got uncomfortable. Finally, she added, it's not what you think. You're twisting everything. I love you. But if you're going to keep acting insecure over one stupid text, maybe you're not ready for someone like me. That was the moment it all crystallized. The months of dismissiveness, the flirting, the secrecy, and now this. Caught red-handed, and somehow I was the problem. I stood up. Calm. No shouting, no accusations. Just done. She blinked. Where are you going? To pack my things. Her mouth fell open. Are you serious right now? Over this? It was a joke. I understand perfectly, I said quietly. Don't worry. You won't have to dump me. Miles, come on, she said, following me as I headed to the bedroom. You're blowing this out of proportion. I said it was a joke. You're seriously just going to throw everything away without even giving me a chance to explain. I pulled my duffel bag from the closet and started folding my clothes into it. My heartbeat was steady. I wasn't thinking about anger or sadness. Just clarity. Miles. Her voice cracked now, switching from annoyed to desperate. This is insane. You're really going to walk out over one stupid message. You're not even listening to me. I've been listening for months, I said. Tonight was the first time you were honest. She went quiet at that. When I zipped my bag and slung it over my shoulder, she tried again. Softer this time. Look, I don't want you to leave. Sometimes I get carried away. But you know I love you. Don't throw this away. I walked past her toward the door. Miles, she said, sharper now, fear bleeding into anger. If you leave, don't expect me to chase after you. I opened the door. Look back once. Good. Then we both know where we stand. And with that, I left. No dramatic slam. No last word. Just quiet, final detachment. That was the last night I ever spent in her apartment. And for a while, I thought that would be the end of it. But Maya wasn't finished with me, not by a long shot. The first day after I left, I expected an explosion of calls and messages. Instead, there was just one text. Maya, wow. Dramatic much? You'll come back once you cool off. I didn't respond. The second day, she doubled down. Maya, you always overreact. I was right not to text you at first. You needed space to realize how ridiculous you're being. I ignored it. By day 3, the tone had changed. Maya, seriously, Miles. Are you just not going to talk to me at all? After everything we've been through. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and went for a run. Every mile I pounded out on the pavement felt like I was shaking off another piece of her. That weekend, I went out with my buddies for the first time in months. The same guys I ditched for her moving weekend. When I told them I was done with Maya, they didn't even look surprised. Dude, my friend James said, shaking his head. We've been waiting for this. She treated you like a backup plan the whole time. I tried to defend her out of habit. She wasn't that bad. James raised an eyebrow. She literally called you her safe option. More than once. You really didn't notice? I felt a chill run down my back. I had noticed. I just convinced myself she meant it in a different way. That night, my phone lit up again. Maya. So what? You think ghosting me makes you look strong? It makes you look weak. Only cowards run away instead of talking things out. I typed out a reply, then deleted it. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. Instead, I posted a picture with my friends at the bar. Nothing flashy. Just me smiling for the first time in weeks. I knew she'd see it. Sure enough, the next morning, Maya, glad you're having fun. I see you don't care at all. Cool. Real mature. Still, I said nothing. By week 2, her messages came in bursts. First soft, then angry, then desperate. Maya, I miss you. Can we just talk? Please. Maya, so you're just done? That's it. No explanation. Maya, if you cared about me at all, you wouldn't be able to ignore me like this. I stayed silent. Friends started reaching out too. Apparently, Maya was telling anyone who would listen that I'd abandoned her for no reason. When one of our mutual friends, Kara, called me, I kept it short. Miles, what happened? Maya says you just walked out. I said, ask her why. There was a pause. Then, oh, and she hung up. That became my standard response. No explanations. No details. Just those 3 words. It forced people to go back to Maya, and apparently, she wasn't good at hiding her story. By the end of the 2nd week, Maya's messages took on a bitter edge. Maya, you think you're too good for me? Newsflash, Miles, you're not. You're boring. Predictable. No one's going to want you long term. I didn't answer. But later that night, another message came through. Maya, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I don't know why you're doing this. Please, just talk to me. For the first time, I felt a stab of something other than anger or numbness. I felt pity. And then, immediately after, relief. Because that pity lasted all of 5 seconds before I realized. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry for losing control. That was the difference. So I let the phone buzz, set it face down, and went to bed. It was the best sleep I'd had in months. By then, Maya had no idea, but karma was already starting to catch up to her. The guy she'd gambled on, the one she thought was her upgrade, was about to show her exactly how replaceable she really was. And I didn't have to lift a finger. I didn't know all the details at first. I wasn't looking for them. But word has a way of getting around when someone burns too many bridges. It started with a late-night call from James. Dude, you're not gonna believe this, he said, half laughing. Remember that guy Maya was, let's say, entertaining on the side? Yeah. Well, turns out he had a girlfriend the entire time. Long-term. Like, living together long-term. She found out, kicked him out, and he basically ghosted Maya the second his life blew up. I let that sink in. It wasn't shock. Not really. More like confirmation of what I already knew. Maya had been gambling with a stacked deck. Apparently, she tried to spin the story to her friends. Told them she was the victim, that he'd led her on, that she never meant to hurt me. But people remembered the way she bragged about trading up before we even broke up. The mask was off. One by one, her circle started shrinking. Invitations stopped coming. Group chats went quiet. Even Kara, who had always defended her, pulled back after realizing Maya had lied about me just walking out for no reason. Meanwhile, my life was lighter. It's amazing how much space you have when you're not constantly managing someone else's drama. I started staying late at work, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. My boss noticed, and within a month, I was offered a promotion I'd been overlooked for before. I picked up old hobbies too. Running became routine. I dusted off my guitar, something I hadn't touched in over a year. I went out with friends without guilt, and for the first time in a long time, I laughed without wondering who was going to text me angry paragraphs about being neglected. And in the background, Maya kept trying. The messages shifted again. Maya, I miss us. I know I messed up, but we had something real. Please just talk to me. Maya, everyone's turned their backs on me. You're the only person who ever really cared. And then, when that didn't work, Maya, I can't believe you're doing this to me. You're punishing me when you know I'm already hurting. But by then, her words didn't sting anymore. They didn't even register as personal. They were just noise from someone who no longer had access to my life. The last piece of the puzzle came through mutual friends again. Apparently, Maya had to move back in with her parents. Rent got too expensive without help, and no one was lining up to play savior. The girl who once bragged about being independent woman energy was back in her childhood bedroom, unemployed, cut off from most of her friends, and abandoned by the guy she thought was her ticket to something better. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just lived. And that, I realized, was the best kind of revenge. But Maya wasn't done yet. It happened about 3 months later. I was grabbing coffee on a Saturday morning, earbuds in, halfway through a podcast, when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned, and there she was. Maya. She looked different. Tired. Her hair was unwashed, clothes wrinkled. The sharp, polished version of her I'd known was gone. Miles, she said softly. Can we talk? I pulled out an earbud, but didn't smile. About what? She bit her lip. About us. About everything. There is no us, Maya. She flinched, but pressed on. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But you were the only person who ever actually cared about me. And I didn't see it until it was too late. I stayed quiet. She stepped closer, voice trembling now. I thought I wanted more excitement, more passion, whatever. But it was fake. He was fake. Everyone's fake. You were the only real thing I had. And I threw it away. Please, please don't let this be the end. I could see the tears welling. Months ago, that might have broken me. But now, all I felt was distance. I shook my head. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry it backfired. That's not true, she snapped, voice rising. Heads turned in the cafe, but she didn't care. I loved you. I still love you. Don't act like you're perfect either. You just ran away instead of fighting for us. I didn't run, I said calmly. I walked away the second you showed me who you really were. She blinked, stunned at my tone. I slung my bag over my shoulder. You told me in that text everything I needed to know. I wasn't your partner. I was your placeholder. And you were already planning your exit. I didn't lose anything that night, Maya. You did. Her lip trembled. So that's it. After everything, you're just done? I looked at her one last time. You're right. I'll never find someone like you again. And that's exactly why I'm better off. With that, I turned and walked out of the cafe. I didn't look back. Since then, she's tried once or twice more, a random email, a follow request on Instagram, but I've never responded. Not because I'm angry, not because I want her to feel ignored, but because she simply doesn't matter to me anymore. And that's the real ending. Not her crying in a coffee shop, not her reputation collapsing. The real ending is me sitting here months later, at peace, living a life that doesn't have her in it. Maya thought she was upgrading. What she really did was downgrade herself into irrelevance. And me? I'm finally free. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.